I'm going to discuss the term rainbow warrior. I use it in my, it's in the header of my YouTube channel page. It's uses that term. And I figured, that if somebody was interested in finding out what that term meant, that they'd be able to search it on the internet and easily find the answer. At least the definition as I mean it. But when I looked it up, I found out that the internet has changed the definition, and it starts with a story. I'll tell it to you as it was passed to me in oral tradition, the way I first heard it, and then at the time, even the oral tradition, when you searched it, at the time then the internet came out that I was able to search it, it substantiated the oral tradition form of the story that I'd heard. But now, if you search that oral tradition story, it says that it's a myth. Okay, but anyhow, the story is that a seer from the Hopi Indian tribe named Eyes of Fire had told of a vision that a white people would come to this continent and bring with them a powerful black people. And over time, a new tribe of people would eventually rise up that would save the earth. And they would be called the Warriors of the Rainbow, because they would be a gathering of all the different peoples of the world and all the different colors. Now that was that's what a rainbow warrior meant to me, and always has since I've heard that story. The rainbow, that prophecy is not, however, limited to just that one story. There's a book, I forget the author's name at the moment, but the name of the book is Rolling Thunder. And the author was a Harvard graduate, and he tells the story of the man, Rolling Thunder, who was first brought into the Haight-Ashbury area of San Francisco after he saw the fulfillment of the prophecy of his Indian tribe that a time would come when white men would wear their hair long and wear beads and like the Native Americans and dance in tribal celebration, and then they would know that they were ready for the medicine men to interact amongst the white man. Well, Rolling Thunder began giving lectures in the Haight-Ashbury area, and in attendance was Carolyn Adams, also known as Mountain Girl, a wife at one time of Jerry Garcia, and they had at least one child together. A few, maybe, I'm not sure of that, but anyhow, Carolyn Adams saw a lecture by Rolling Thunder. Well, at the time, Jerry Garcia was sick with pneumonia, so sick he was, laid up in bed with it. So she took Rolling Thunder to the 710 Ashbury House, and Rolling Thunder performed a healing ceremony on Jerry Garcia, and Jerry was up and out the door. Now, in the ceremony, Rolling Thunder used used the smoke, and then chases the smoke out the door. Well, someone was coming in to the apartment, or to the house, at the time that Rolling Thunder was chasing the smoke out. When that smoke hit him, he got sick, so the ceremony had to be performed twice. So anyhow, that's all. That relates to the Rainbow Warriors. Now, the Deadheads and the Rainbow Warriors are linked in a lot of ways, and share a joint community to a degree. But back to the Rainbow Warrior. Okay, it's now practiced in the gatherings. See, the Rainbow Warrior thing was the teachings of Native American culture. Now, using the term Native American, let's let's just say this, the people that insist so strongly that that is the only acceptable term, not, you can't say American Indian or Indian. They say the people that say Native American is the only term for a person of that ethnic background are also the same people that insist that it was actually Asians who crossed the Bering Sea and came into North America and formed the tribes known as the American Indians, or aka the Native Americans. But however, if they came from Asia, they're not really Native Americans then, are they, any more than the cultures that came from Africa or Europe? So you see, there's if you want to split hairs, you can do that all day with anybody. You can, if you want to find actual contempt in speech, you have to rely on your instincts. And when you're searching for truth, you have to rely on your instincts. Is this person trying to mislead me? Is he trying to blow smoke up my ass? Or is he trying to talk about some things that they actually genuinely believe? So, you know, the Native Americans culture, it is told, was part of the prophecy that it would be needed because the earth would become sick. And the sickness, I believe, is not just a sickness of the polluted rivers that we have and cities that are just covered with concrete and steel, and people complain it's hot when everything's basically just reflects heat up like crazy. You know, I went to Jones Beach outside New York City. Oh, I've been there several times, but one time there, I arrived at that concert venue many hours early of time for the concert, so I had time to walk Jones Beach, and I saw historical plaques from the past. Well, at one time, Jones Beach was packed every day of the summer. I mean, packed, and Louis Armstrong was there playing music, and big gatherings lasted well into the evening. And as I'm looking at these plaques and walking around that beach, it was relatively empty. And that was just shocking to me, because if with people complaining about the heat so much, and then New York City having grown over time, why would this piece of nature and a way to get cool in the summertime not be being utilized more than it is? And the answer is everybody's sitting around in their air conditioning and don't even want to go outside to get into the vehicle or whatever to go out there. So that's the part of the sickness. It's not so much, you know, it's sort of the mentality that has separated people from nature. Okay, and more on the teachings of the Rainbow Warriors. Is that the campfire was your first television set, essentially. People gathered around the campfire, and their music was played, their dancing took place, their stories were told, and that was the culture. Well, that campfire required energy, and that energy was the one source of energy, and you could call it a fossil fuel to a degree, although it's a easily replenishable fossil fuel, was wood. And the wood that was gathered for the campfires was from the fallen limbs of the trees. Very rarely did a tree need to be cut. And by gathering up the fallen limbs on the ground in the forest, not only are you not harming the trees, but you're actually protecting them from forest fires. Because in order for forest fires to spread, they essentially need that ground heat to be down there, and that because heat rises for the fire to go from tree to tree. The strong wind to catch a living tree on fire and spread in that way is much more difficult. without the ground debris, forest fires are essentially not a thing. Not nearly to the degree that they are now. Now, proof of this is the ancient redwood forest in California, where trees well over 1,000 years old stand as living testimony to the fact that the peoples that lived there and practiced this way of life, gathering around the campfire, protected those trees from forest fires. Now we see on the news often reports in California of drastic and huge forest fires. And at the same time, people are complaining about not enough usable energy. And we fight wars for oil overseas when at one time the only source for heat and light in the evening and entertainment was the burning of fallen limbs. So, and then when for the teepee poles and such, spears, those were where you would want to cut a living tree to have fresh wood. That would be generally a small, younger tree. It wouldn't be one of the ancient trees hundreds of years old. There just wasn't a use for that amongst that way of life. And so it thrived. And so it was man in the way the Native Americans lived, man was a helpful parasite upon the earth. Not only was it not damaging the earth, it was protecting the earth. So that's essentially the teachings of the Rainbow Warrior. And where does the word war come from? What is the war? Well, the war is the common enemy of all of us who want to live is death. So the war is a survival of us as a species, and the rainbow is the gathering of all the different tribes of the earth. So there is the Rainbow Warrior. Now, where do these teachings get taught? One of the places is at rainbow gatherings. That's why they're called rainbow gatherings. It dates back to that Indian prophecy, which is now, Wikipedia says, is a myth. But the validity of the teachings and the practices of the people, you'd have to test that for yourself and see whether or not you believe it is a myth. Nonetheless, not everybody who goes to a rainbow gathering is a rainbow warrior, and not everyone who's a rainbow warrior goes to a rainbow gathering. The laws and there comes another part of the warrior aspect, is that the same laws that essentially make the Native American way of life prior to colonial settlement illegal are the same laws that make a rainbow gathering have conflict with the law sometimes. There are laws that say how many people can be gathered together in a national forest. There are private property laws which stop the migration from the cold weather to the warm weather. There's hunting and fishing restrictions which limit one's ability to provide for themselves from nature. So, although the Native Americans were not eliminated by colonial people as a race or an ethnicity, their way of life was outlawed, essentially. And now that we're seeing the problems that we're facing as a whole global community, it's time for those teachings to bear some fruit. Thank you.